Darren, how you doing? One of those days indeed. You got plans to go to London?
My first thought today was I need to get this news story up. My second
Oh.
thought today was I need to renew my passport. It expired more than 10 years ago.
How did you get into
Stargate's
Vancouver
going
with
to
me?
London. I think you and I should go too.
I haven't been in a couple of years. Stargate's going to London. My gosh. Well,
We can make a trip of it. We can go to Scotland.
I have
Back
not
to my old stomping grounds.
I have not been to Scotland. You must show me. So there's this certain website called GateWorld that just reported this news. Let's go and check it out here. I do apologize to everyone. I've got some new tools that are running here, so things may take a second to load on my end here. I've also got a new camera running, so it's nice and warm. I'm a little more rosy than usual. If you have questions that you want to get over to us and you are in the Dial the Gate live stream, new procedure. Put a question mark as the first character at the start of your of what you're submitting in the live stream, and it will go to me directly. It won't go to the mods. It'll skip the mods. Mods are there for crowd control, so everyone in there behave. Darren, you have a procedure for people submitting questions to you?
Yeah. If you're in the GateWorld chat right now, would you just tag me at gateworld.net so that I can see your comment or your question, and we'll try to have a conversation with you guys here as we go through this news.
Yes, this is a big one. We've been wanting to hear about this one for a while. I'm sure there are all kinds of feelings in the audience about this, so we're going to get to that here, but let's run the news. All right. Video message. Okay. Stargate to film new series in London this year by Darren.
That's me. Don't wear it out.
Yeah. So in the UK, I'm trying to figure out how to insult you. Wouldn't we call you a wanker in that case? Is that the
I think that's very rude.
Oh, I apologize then.
We'll have to ask our British friends.
Yes. The latest entry in the venerable science fiction franchise is set its home base with production slated to begin in 2026. That's this year. So Darren says London will serve as home to the main stages and production office for the fourth live-action series of the franchise, which is created and executive produced by Martin Gero, Stargate Atlantis, and Blind Spot. Amazon MGM Studios officially announced the project in November, and the series will stream globally on Prime Video. Watch the video below for the original announcement, featuring yours truly ×2. While the main stages will be in London, the show will be shot all over the world. A source tells GateWorld production is slated to begin in the fall of 2026, with the studio currently discussing a possible September start. Oh, really?
So the two big takeaways, we can go through this paragraph by paragraph if you'd like, but the two big takeaways for people is, number one, we were waiting to see where, if they were going to shoot in locations all over the world, where was home base? Where were they going to set up the production offices? And where was the main stage going to be for whatever the home base is for the show? Is it going to be Vancouver? Is it going to be Los Angeles? Now we know as of today that it's going to be in London or the London area. They're going to put their production offices there. They're going to build sets there. And the second big takeaway is they're kind of, as we speculated, they're going to target the fall of this year to begin shooting.
Man, oh man. Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the ramp up, you know, in terms of development for something like this was going to take a hot minute. I didn't think they would have aspirations to start shooting in July. They probably won't even be done with casting by July, I would think. So, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we might start to get casting. I'm just, based on the fact that Martin Gero has told us that this takes about 2 years from the time that he announced it with us last November to starting a writer's room in January. It takes about 2 years to go through this process for various reasons that we can get into, right? This show is not produced like the old Stargate series were produced week to week. But if it takes about 2 years and the writer's room is working the first part of 2026, then you can start to game it out and think, okay, well, they're probably going to be casting maybe by the summertime and shooting by the fall, filming on, if it is a 10 episode kind of typical big budget streaming series, those shows, like a modern day Star Trek show, they tend to film for, I want to say, 8 or 9 months. And so we're talking about late 2026 through the first part of 2027, potentially the first half of 2027 for principal photography. And then they have all the visual effects and post-production and other stuff. So I still think late, very end of 2027 is probably the absolute earliest we're going to see this premiere.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
But the timetable fits, agree. Right? Starting principal photography in this fall fits that timetable that we were guessing.
Yeah. What do you think about, well, let's get back to the news and then we will ask more, because maybe I'll learn something.
You have read it, haven't you?
No, of course not. I only knew about this an hour ago.
You just saw the headline and said, let's go live.
Dude, I barely had a pee. All right, here we go. While the main stages will be in London, the show will be shot all over the world. This timetable compares with Gero's statement to fans last month that the first season will be in production for approximately 2 years before it premieres. Several months of principal photography that stretch into 2027 will be followed by post-production and visual effects work, as well as the process of localization that will allow for simultaneous global release in multiple languages. That's everything that's required to get it into the shape that it needs to be in for it to work in that region, right down to like colloquialisms. So a great example of this is Emancipation, SG1. In the English-speaking world, when they're talking about, not being able to share this new plant or whatever it is that may be a cure for something, O'Neill says, well, there goes that Oprah interview. And Teal'c says, what is an Oprah? In France, in French, you know what it says?
No.
There goes my shot at a Nobel Prize.
They just changed the dialogue.
That's right.
Because there's no context for what is an Oprah. There's no context.
So the audience is left with the same feeling in the end. Exactly. And that's the goal. Just like in Inside Out, the nasty food on the table that the kid has to eat to go, ugh. The food was changed region for region based on what kids would think there. So like this is all regioning. So that's really amazing. Cool stuff. Yeah.
I mean, we've been celebrating since the announcement that one of the strengths that Amazon brings to the table for this show is a truly global simultaneous release. Mm-hmm. Unlike in the olden days when here in the States, we would watch it on Showtime or Sci-Fi Channel. And then in the UK, they would get it on Sky. Was it on Sky?
Sky One premiered season 8, 9, and 10 first, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, UK people in the chat, let us know where you watch the show.
I remember torrenting.
So most seasons it would be at least a month behind.
Yeah.
And then it would kind of roll out to other countries. French fans would get it a few months later. Italian fans would get it a few months later. Czech fans maybe a year later. Yep. And it was this staggered thing. And it was a great source of frustration for online fandom, which of course is global. We're all in the chat talking to each other right after an episode premieres. So if we want a really global experience as a fan base, well, we got to build in all that extra time because you're talking about hiring voiceover cast. Mm-hmm. And recording all the dialogue and doing all of that post-production for the voiceover. And then you're also talking about translating the subtitles, the closed captions, so that you have on-screen text in your local language and getting all that synced up. And there are third parties usually get hired to do that work region by region.
That's it.
But that's part of post-production now for a show that drops in over 200 countries and territories at the same time. So that's part of what we're going to be waiting for after principal photography is wrapped, not just all the sparkly visual effects, but the localization. And that takes time.
Sorry, there's a Chinook flying over my head. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into the post-production process, not just visual effects, down to subtitles, everything else. Yeah, the big advantage for this was, and I'm so thankful for it, that every Stargate fan the world over gets to share this show at the same time. And none of us have to feel like we're on the high seas just to get a copy of the thing. We get to put our money where our mouth is, which is what I have been saying to Stargate fans from day one.
Yeah.
14 years ago. Support whatever comes next if you want to see more of this thing. And they've got one shot to do it right, you know, with that pilot. It better be a banger. And
yeah,
I think
because
there's
remember,
a pretty darn good chance it's going to be.
Stargate is new to Amazon, and Amazon is new to Stargate. So other than the data that they're getting from the streaming of all the previous shows, they're going to be watching the numbers on this show to decide if this is a franchise that's worth investing in.
That's right.
Or are they going to look at the numbers and say, I guess Stargate fandom's not really that big.
We tried.
Not really that energized anymore. So we'll just run this show out, maybe let it rest for a few years and think about what it might be next. No, if we really want a franchise, which is what I'm hoping for, I'm going to do some more content, some more videos over the course of the next 2 years on the fact that I want Amazon to build a franchise, which means potentially more than one show in production at once, different kinds of projects in production. The first one's got to be successful. It's got to have the numbers to back more ambitious plans.
Casually, Sandra, why do you think the UK was chosen as opposed to Canada? Differentiation, is that a word? Differentiation. Tax breaks, maybe. I actually have a UK citizen who submitted a video to us who just found out about the news, and he brings that up a little bit as well. This is Tommy Valentine, formerly of The Companion.
So the news has just broke that the new Stargate series is going to be filming in my city in London, and honestly, I couldn't be more excited. I've spent my whole career living and working in and around London, even in various of the film studios like Leavesden and Pinewood. And I mean, Amazon MGM have ownership of Shepperton, so I'm sure stuff could be happening there. Either way, I'm just so excited. I mean, London's got a great history with film and cinema, with things like James Bond, but also with sci-fi. I mean, Star Wars was filmed in Elstree Studios in 1976 when no one knew what the hell they was getting into. Even reusing props later from Doctor Who, another famous sci-fi show that's filmed over here. So we've got great history for it, and I'm really, really excited by this news. Just on a real personal level, we've got such a great crew system in and around London as well, all like experts working on dozens and dozens of productions because everyone loves those UK tax incentives to filming over here. So I'm really, really excited about this. I can't wait to see what's in store. Even hearing that they're going to be filming a bit more internationally is really exciting as well. But having a strong hub in London with our amazing studios over here just gets me really, really excited about the new, fresh direction of this show. I love Vancouver. It's one of my favourite cities, honestly, on planet Earth. And I love the ties to Stargate and how attached that they felt in the past. I think that's been very important. But I think for the future, this is an exciting, new, bold step. And as a Londoner, as a local, I couldn't be more proud and excited.
So tax incentives is a big one, I would think. There's some pretty good ones coming out of, So
which was the case for SG1, Atlantis, and Universe when they were shooting in British Columbia. We had the tax incentives from BC Film and Television, as well as the strength of the American dollar relative to the Canadian dollar back in the day.
It's true.
So yeah, that's going to be a factor. How far does Amazon's money stretch shooting in the UK?
And these are going to be made on euros, I guess. At this point, are they going to be GBP? Not entirely sure. What's the politics?
Oh,
they're on
they're on pounds.
They're back to pounds.
They're still on the pound.
Okay, they are.
And apologies to Brits in the chat who are watching later. Yes, it is the autumn, not the fall. It's the autumn that they will start filming.
Yeah. They don't have yards. They have gardens.
That's right.
Yeah. And someone asked, why do some people spell MacGyver with a U? Because they're wankers. So the fact of the matter is that there are a couple of studios now that could be flagged for this. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is in the GateWorld news story. There's lots of places around the world that Amazon owns or has interests in. So they lease space or they own space in lots of different places, in Toronto, in London, in Los Angeles area, obviously. But kind of the two prominent ones that we currently have our eye on in the UK, in the London area, is Sheppard Studios, which Tommy mentioned. That's in Surrey. That has space that is leased. It's apparently a big behemoth. They just added more space to it, more sound stages. I think it's now the second largest shooting space in the world.
Wow.
And they're currently leasing to both Amazon and Netflix.
Okay.
But in 2024, Amazon also purchased Bray Film Studios in Berkshire, which is a historic film studio. Tons of stuff have been filmed there. And most recently, for Amazon's part, The Rings of Power and Citadel.
Oh, wow. Oh, Citadel is shot. I'll be darned.
Both shot at Bray Film Studios.
Okay.
Shot or are shooting. I think Citadel got canceled.
You're kidding. Which one?
I think so.
Wasn't that going to be a franchise?
It was. I think
wow.
I think the first spin-off or spin-offs are still going ahead, but I want to say that maybe the experiment didn't work. Don't quote me on this. I'd have to go look up the news story.
Well, if it was canceled, that's not a good sign.
Didn't work, or the executive who was spearheading it. This might have been a Jen Salke project, and it might have died when she left Amazon.
Okay. Absolutely. All right. Understood. Yeah, this is absolutely wow. I mean, I'm still just sitting here digesting the implications of this. There's so much positive about this. For one thing, if you want access to more arid locations, if you want access to Africa, to the Middle East, to more, a lot more, a few more alien spots than you could over here. Basing it in London would give you a better access to it. And I think we could probably infer a few things, but like if you're going to film worldwide, it would make a lot of sense to place it in London rather than in the United States, like LA or in Vancouver. I'm wondering if Gero and company are going to shift their location and go over there, or if they're going to like do what Lucas did and hunker down at Skywalker and with his T1 line question. And connect with everybody. Yeah. I wonder
if Martin's going to move out there temporarily or manage from afar. That's a good question. Mm-hmm. A lot of these shows, I think, that shoot worldwide, they do those international locations by and large for their externals. And
explain externals.
For their location shooting, their outdoor scenes. And then they use the sound stages for all the stuff where they can build sets and have it fixed and control your climate and lighting and all that, and shoot around the clock. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, for example, filmed in some stuff in the UK and Los Angeles, but then when they go on location, you want a nice big desert. Instead of using the volume or some other way of faking it, if you want to film in Tunisia, you have a unit that is scheduled out for X number of days shooting in Tunisia, and that you just run that unit. I was looking through the credits of Fallout for reasons that we can get into that are also related to this story. And Fallout had I think it said a Namibia unit where they just did a bunch of externals in Namibia. So I imagine for Stargate with a budget, that's probably what we're looking at for worldwide. It's probably all the internal stuff, the sound stage stuff is going to be in London, and then go around the world for alien planets, right? Instead of the Vancouver forest and the rock quarry, and that's kind of it. Mm-hmm. They can find alien planets by looking at different shooting locations all over the world.
Yeah. I'm thrilled that they're doing this. They certainly don't have to. One of my favorite shows that they killed was Netflix's 1899. And
yeah, that was the one on the ship.
Looks like $1 million. I mean, they do this shot where they're in the middle of like this mountainous area. It looks like Pelennor Fields. You got this rocky, grassy terrain, and then all around is just a wall of mountains. And there's this big black square in the sky where it's an artifice, and that the technology is extraordinary now. And the fact that they are choosing to go back out there and do it, I think says a lot about Amazon's commitment to making a fantastic product. So
yeah,
this is
every time you're
stuff.
watching something on screen and saying, well, that's really pretty, like a wide shot. Let's say a character is walking across a big green field with mountains in the background and a spaceship hanging in the sky. You can look at that and say, well, that's pretty, but I can tell it's fake. I can tell that it's entirely CG, or maybe they filmed an actor on a green screen walking and that part's composited in. I wish they would spend the money on shooting stuff practically, right? That was a lot of what Star Wars fans took issue with as we entered the digital revolution with the Star Wars prequels was, boy, I wish filmmakers would shoot more stuff practically.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's what you can do if you spend this kind of money to go on location, to take a team to Tunisia or Prague or wherever you're going and shoot it practically. Shoot as many of those elements. You got to composite the spaceship into the sky still, but shoot all the other elements as practically as you can. And it's going to look like it. It's going to look real, especially in 4K.
Iceman 0003, any announcement as to whether or not it'll be set in the current year? The new Stargate will be set in the now. It's kind of a staple of the franchise at this point, unless they're telling a period piece like Origins was. They've definitely confirmed that this is going to be in the now, and it's going to be elements that you can recognize, colloquialisms that you can low-key recognize, as my godson would say. Please, God, don't have them talk like that. But there's... And I went back and forth on this. You and I did an episode, 2 years ago at this point, that was basically asking what the 12 things that we would like to see in SG4. But I swung for the fences. I was like, set it in 2070, 2080. Give us our own Stargate at this point. Have humanity, but we have a freaking Asgard core. The Asgard had to have been able to build Stargates if they wanted to. I mean, that would be a great homage to them. Build a Stargate out of Asgard technology. But, I mean, they still, I suppose, could at this point. Any thoughts on that?
We've also talked about the fact that if you don't want Earth to be a modern galactic superpower, that you have to deal them some kind of setback. Mm-hmm. Whether it's setting up the show and where things are on Earth at Stargate Command today, or whether it's something that's imposed by maybe the new antagonist. There has to be a limitation. And I wonder, because of Unending and because... Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we did much with the Asgard knowledge base in the years following Unending. Again, it created replicators in
and a cello, and some Tritonin. But other than Unending itself, it wasn't really utilized technology. Again. Yeah,
we got from Unending. We
lasers. Have, the Asgard beam technology was used in Atlantis. It wasn't fired on the Lucian Alliance in universe, interestingly enough.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is we could very well pick up 15, however many, 20 years later. And maybe the explanation is we haven't been able to crack the code. We haven't been able to figure out how to... Weaponize is the wrong word. How to actually deploy what's in the database. Yeah, right. It's integrated into the Odyssey. We're having a hard time replicating their technology, the ability to build a Stargate, the ability to build a ship. I was participating in a Reddit conversation last week where we're talking about could we build something that's the equivalent of the O'Neill? Advanced Asgard warship. And one of the points I was making was one of the limitations would be we would have to find a source of neutronium.
We would need, it's
potentially
it's a composite of the alloy used to make the O'Neill is trinium, naquadah, and carbon.
Is it trinium, not Not neutronium?
It's not neutronium.
Okay.
No, neutronium was
So
what
something
the
that's
Doomsday
not
Machine
natural
was
on
made
it.
of.
Yeah, whatever it needs to be made of in order to be as advanced as the O'Neill
exactly
was.
Right.
Would be something that's not native to Earth. So we would have to find it. We would have to set up a large-scale mining operation, figure out how to ferry it somewhere where it can be processed and then used in manufacturing.
Unas. We have lots of Unas. The Odyssey is a huge can of worms.
Lots of Unas.
We do have lots of Unas. Hire them.
Fly them in. Put them to work.
I've got to share this right now.
I'm just thinking, those are kind of the sort of story beats where you could explain why we are not the Asgard in 2028 in terms of our level of advancement.
Yes, this is absolutely true. There's I just have to achieve that. The thought that ran through my head because we were talking about the pyramids a little bit last year with everything that was thought to be found underneath there. Achievement. You can do anything you set your mind, God, come on, to when you have, dagnabbit, sorry guys. You can do anything you set your mind to when you have vision, determination, and an endless supply of expendable Unas labor. So
that's exactly it.
They're doing it for their heritage. They're doing it in memory of their fallen brethren. Continue to mine this
on that planet they
trinium
were.
over. Yeah. Right, exactly.
How about we scoop up 10,000 of you and put you to work elsewhere?
Jeez. I still
that
feel
might
really
be
weird
slave
about that.
labor.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they're going to have to hobble the Odyssey in some way, and please don't destroy her. But I would not feel
too valuable to fly around,
flying it around with all of what is left of an entire civilization. I think that would be relatively irresponsible. Let's fly it into the Ori galaxy. You know, and if there's
the only reason that made any sense was because it had a cloak and you needed it.
She did have a cloak.
But these days, I would say Odyssey needs to be grounded for study.
Yeah, put her in dry dock.
And security.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we owe it to them as the fifth race to hang on to it. And maybe
we can't make copies of it.
That's the thing.
Database.
We can or we can't?
Well, remind me how Unending plays out. I feel like there was dialogue about it's so integrated into the
Odyssey systems. I don't think you're going to be able to get it out.
That it couldn't be removed. It couldn't be turned off. And this is probably just my headcanon, but I want to say it's going to be really tough for Earth to make copies of it.
I think so too. If anyone has any input on that, put a question mark.
Get information out of it.
You can. I don't know if I would at this point. I think you pull up Thor or, Heimdall or Freyr.
Yeah, it's one of a kind.
You tell them what's going on. They're like, you know what? I think we're taking this away from you for a little while. You tell us when you've sorted this stuff out and then we'll give it back. We're going to park ourselves behind the moon. But
we could get Hollow Thor back.
Yeah. Yeah, we could. For sure. Yeah. It's, I still think that the Vanir, I think that, I went back and rewatched Unending, and Thor says the last attempt to solve our genetic problem has left each of us with a rapidly debilitating disease. So we don't have to fix we don't have to give them wiggly bits. We have to solve that. So if we can just get a little bit of Vanir DNA, we may be able to reset it back to that point.
Yeah. Not a fix, just a reset.
Enough of one. Yeah, for sure. This is so wild, man. You have any questions on your side?
Yeah, I'm looking through questions. Tele-editing says in The Last Man, end of Atlantis Season 4, we see the Phoenix having an Asgard core or at least a console on the bridge. Yes. So that part was replicated. Granted an alternate timeline, however.
The Hammond is the Phoenix.
Right. So it would have been a different ship than the Odyssey. And I wonder if it is just a console and not the core. Because for Odyssey, the core went in engineering. And we've also seen Asgard consoles on the Daedalus. Hermione had one, didn't he?
Hermione did have one. I swear I've seen an Asgard console at somewhere else too. I'm not entirely sure though. Tele-editing is Telemakos. He's our new video editor.
Excellent.
He is responsible for this dashboard working tonight, and boy, was that serendipitous, buddy. Thank you so much. Why are you still up in Greece? Go to bed. But
Bales 224. Let's hope they don't do a sci-fi channel and don't only focus on U.S. numbers. There's nothing more insulting than being ignored. I think that's exactly the point that we're making about Amazon doing this show globally, is because they're a global company, they have to pay attention to the global numbers. Every view counts. It's not just the people with a Nielsen box. It's not just the people with a Nielsen box living in the United States who are watching on the Sci-Fi Channel, because that particular basic cable network is helping to foot the production bill. It really is. This is the first chance for Stargate fans, really, that all of us and our viewership really do contribute to the success of the show.
That's it. That's it. CLBCL5. Every alien world had either pine trees or sand. Can this be done in Great Britain? I think we're expanding our palette a little bit here.
I think we're going to be amazed at what alien worlds look like, and not just because of the volume and CG.
No, I think they're going to use all the tools that they have at their disposal. We asked Martin Gero a very similar question to that, like, what are you going to use now? And it's like, well, everything that's available to us will be a part of the canvas of options to remove from the tool chest and utilize. Again, I think so. Principal photography, I suspect, would certainly take place in London. But again, what's implied here is that it's the central base for whatever they're going to shoot. It's not all going to be shot in the UK.
Yeah, and let's talk about. So certainly they could use locations in the UK for exteriors, but let's talk about the production process. So what we were used to with the previous Stargate shows, when you're doing 20, 22 a year, is you've got constantly rolling through episodes, right? There's scripts being written, there's stuff being prepped, there's an episode or two being shot, there's a couple, 3 in post-production, and they're just moving through the pipeline, kind of at warp speed. And so when you're shooting a particular episode, you've got, I think, what was their typical shooting was 8 days for an episode, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And there was an overlap day.
So you're local, right? That's why a location like Vancouver works so well. You shoot on the soundstage, you shoot on the special effects stage, you got a couple of days out at the rock quarry for your location. You patch it all together, and that episode is more or less done in 8 days. For this, what we're talking about is map out the whole season, figure out all the locations that we need for every episode, and then when we're on this planet, we're going to be in whatever, Tunisia or Prague or wherever it might film, Vancouver. And they'll do all that stuff for however many episodes it ends up being. They'll shoot all of that with that unit while they're in that country.
And get that bulk of it out of the way. Yeah, the nice thing about having all these episodes scripted in advance, which I suspect they'll largely be, is they can do whole chunks at the same time. Game of Thrones was certainly shot that way. They were shooting, to my recollection, they were pretty much shooting the entire canvas of episodes throughout principal photography. So it makes that's the added benefit of having advanced planning. So
and as much as people don't like the idea of 8 or 10 episodes, that's one of the advantages of 8 or 10 episodes is you can optimize that production process, optimize principal photography. You have everything planned and know exactly what you need, and so you don't have to rely on we got to drive a circus of trucks out to the GVRD and shoot for 2 days in the rain.
Exactly. Speaking of, we haven't talked about the fact that Vancouver is not going to be Stargate, targeted the fact that in discussion that Vancouver is not going to be Stargate's home base anymore. Aren't you supposed to be having on a Vancouverite to speak on this issue? And
yes,
how will this change that discussion in your mind?
Well, I sent Andrew an email this afternoon. sharing the news with him and seeing how it might change. It certainly will change our discussion because
exactly.
I'm having on GateWorld's live stream tomorrow afternoon. I'm having Andrew Reeve come on. Andrew is a big Stargate fan. He's a longtime fan. He was when we did our live streams right after the announcement in November and put out a call asking for fans to get involved in what we're doing on our channels. Andrew was one of the very first who contacted me, and he's also got a foot in BC politics. He's a news commentator, and shortly thereafter, he wrote an op-ed in the Vancouver Sun, arguing for why it would be great for British Columbia for Stargate to come back to Vancouver. Right. This
December 11th.
So the tone of the conversation was to be, here's why Vancouver and the British Columbia film community should go after Stargate, should try and actively solicit it, try and woo it back to Vancouver. Now that home base is going to be in London, that shifts that conversation a bit. But again, Stargate's going to shoot worldwide, and I hope that one of those locations is still Vancouver. So we'll have Andrew on tomorrow to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, give him a shot for sure. I'm very interested to hear about how that conversation goes. I'm going to try and tune in for that one live if I can. Judith Remke's. Darren, can you tell us any more about the producer that you've listed? We haven't mentioned him.
The additional name that we didn't have before, we have, so confirmation, we know Martin Gero is creating and executive producing and show running. Martin's production company is Quinn's House Productions, which will be it'll be in the end credits, just like we used to get different people's production companies for Double Secret and Gecko, right? Those are different production companies that are attached to different executive producers. So here we're going to get MGM Studios, Amazon MGM Studios. We're going to get Quinn's House Productions. Electric Entertainment will be on the end credits. That's Dean Devlin's outfit. Centropolis Entertainment, you might recognize. That's Roland Emmerich. But then the additional name that we got is James W. Skotchdopole. Apologize, James, if I butchered your name. He's also listed in the publication Production Weekly has a listing on the new Stargate show, and his name shows up there.
Dude, he's a producer on a ton of great films.
He's been
holy cow.
He's been a major film producer since the 80s, and he's done a ton of stuff that you know of. The ones that I called out in the news story are Sleepless in Seattle, Crimson Tide, Django Unchained, The Revenant.
Yeah.
He's done 30 or 40 years of film production, and then just recently he's apparently got involved in television and streaming production. So his last two credits are Amazon projects: The Peripheral, which is an excellent one-season show from Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. I like The Peripheral a lot. Okay. And then he also worked on the first 4 episodes of Fallout as an executive producer.
Okay. So he's already in the Amazon family.
He's going to be involved, or he is involved. GateWorld can report in the new Stargate show.
Okay.
I presume he's going to get an executive producer credit on screen, but I haven't confirmed that yet.
A lot of unit production manager work. I suspect he will be on the ground.
Yeah, I suspect he might be the N. John Smith of the new show.
Okay.
Unit production. John Smith on Stargate SG-1 was the executive producer who kept the trains running on time.
He sure did.
He made sure that the show came in on time and on budget.
Wow. And this is good news, man. The caliber of folks that are involved in this thing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It sure is. Boy, oh boy. So let me have a look here.
And I do hope we get a Vancouver Forest. You can't go too many episodes without a Vancouver Forest.
Who is this 505? Yeah, I need Grouse Mountain in at least one shot. Maybe we'll ski down it one time. Who is this 505 asks, does the location mean no U.S. Air Force or U.S. Space Force participation? I don't think that's necessarily the case. So
I wouldn't think so.
They certainly can participate, and I certainly hope that there is a hope of that, because the Air Force and Stargate were inextricably linked in particularly SG1, but they were definitely acknowledged in all three shows. I asked Rob Cooper that specifically, like, why wasn't the Air Force more a specific presence?
Oh yeah.
And he says, well, Atlantis was governed by the IOA, so it didn't make sense for there to be more Air Force oversight in that instance, because it was a multinational expedition, and
even the military contingent.
Right. Something very similar for Universe as well, and there was a heavier, like, Marine influence there as well. So I think Greer was a Marine. Yeah. He was a 7, I think. But it makes a lot of sense that I think I hope the Air Force is consulted for sure.
I think there's no reason that they would not be, unless there was a particular story reason.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess the SGU didn't use the Air Force quite as much, also because it was a darker show. It was people who were stranded galaxies away, who were
IOA oversight, potentially
at the end of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't much of any oversight. So I would guess that they were not eager to have the U.S. Air Force knock back any story ideas or dialogue.
You think that's what it was, to make the story a little bit more their own? That's a great question for Brad and Rob.
Yeah, for Brad and Rob. I'm just guessing based on the tone of the show and the sorts of things that their characters did, right? We've heard stories of SG-1 getting notes over the years about ways that they didn't want to see a uniformed Air Force officer behave, things that they shouldn't do.
Correct. There's a reason O'Neill resigns before he kisses Carter and would have opportunity.
Yeah.
A, it makes a funny scene. B, it's a funny scene. But C, I'm sure the Air Force was like, what? That's the whole reason. In There Before the Grace of God, Rob Cooper told us the last time we had him on, we'll just make Carter a civilian in this alternate reality. And because they were like, alternate reality, alternate Air Force, it's still our Air Force. Even if it's an alternate one, we're not going to crack. And that made sense. So, yeah, I think it was great that they made her a civilian.
And then for SGU, think about all the things that Colonel Young went through, all the things that he did.
That's it.
With locking Telford up and taking all the air out of the room, almost killing him.
Yeah. Young killing Riley with his bare hands, even given the circumstances, I don't think the Air Force would have been thrilled with that. Yeah, for sure.
So I think it depends on what the story is. In Martin's new story, is the Air Force, is the U.S. military even involved in the operations of the Stargate program? We don't know the answer to that yet.
That's it. Tele-editing, again, Telemakos, would having home base be in London make it harder, less likely for older cast that live in Vancouver, West Coast to appear in the new show, let alone a lack of U.S. Air Force when it comes to advice and support? You know who else lives in London?
Who?
Anna Louise Plowman. They moved the show for Anna Louise. I got it. I called it.
Well, if they bring her back, I want her to get Goulded or some time travel shenanigans or something. I mean, I want to see Sarah Gardner, but I don't want to just see Sarah Gardner. I want to see Osiris chew on some scenery.
I just want to see Sarah Gardner. Absolutely. So, yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm going to drive it into the ground, man. Iceman.
Yeah, well, you want to start to think of all the UK talent, right? Who's already out there?
So yeah. What was her face? She was locked in the mirror thing in Superman. She was a Tok'ra. Garshaw.
Oh, Sarah Douglas.
Sarah Douglas, absolutely. I just remember her doing this a lot in one of the Superman scenes. She's I think she's UK based. There's a couple of other actors
very likely
over there who are as well. What's his face, who played Daryl in Bounty? He's in the UK now as well. She looked back and she looks good. Iceman 0003. David, do you think the gate would be made public, such as what happened in 2010? I really doubt it. I was having this Diana, please forgive me. I'm gonna share your idea, but Diana Botsford and I were
looking up to heaven, praying like she's not with us anymore.
She's not with us at the moment. I'm looking up to Wisconsin. Wisconsin? Michigan. The fact of the matter is that is a huge story point, and you don't just mow over that. And oh, by the way, it was revealed they were going to hang a whole movie on that idea in Stargate Revolutions, were they not?
Just say again. I'm reading chat. What are they doing in Stargate Revolutions?
They were going
public.
Yeah. Was that the idea, or is that what was talked about?
That was the plan for Stargate Revolutions, the canceled SG-1 movie that was going to come after Continuum. And I remember vividly standing in Brad Wright's office at Bridge and talking about the Stargate going public at some point in the future. This was, far before the end. And he said to us, I think you were there, he said to us, that's a story you can only tell once.
That's it.
And he wanted to put it in his pocket. In our reality, he wanted to put it in his pocket because it was such a plum story to tell, the revelation of the Stargate to the public. He wanted to put it in his pocket at that point, I think, potentially for a movie. I think he was still thinking about an SG-1 theatrical feature film to tell that story with. Eventually, Stargate had DVD movies, so it was going to be a central plot point for Stargate Revolution.
Continuum.
But it's a story you can only tell once. And because Brad valued that story so much, I'm pretty skeptical that the new show will just leapfrog over it and not tell it. And just have the Stargate be public.
I still think that disclosure could happen at some point, but
in this show, think?
I think that it would be a season-long plot. I don't think that they'd hang it on the end of a season or do something with it that, you know, just didn't make everything change as a result. You would want to absolutely pound as much money as you could into this thing, and give it as much exposure as you could, because it's such a huge deal. So
yeah, exactly.
Casually Sandra, I'd expect them to retire those ships and have a new fleet by now, especially because the core needed to be studied. Absolutely, study that core. Didn't you just have Ryan Begeman on Malachor, RJB?
I did.
His Earth fleet. Man.
We went through everything. I had a blast with Ryan.
And he has a process for each and every one of those spaceships. Isn't he wild?
Yeah, the way that his mind works as an artist, that he approaches it not just as the aesthetics of making a beautiful piece of work, but as a fan, getting into the details and not only knowing what needs to be there on this side of the hull of this ship, but imagining from there. So we talked a bit about the fact that his Daedalus has hangar doors that are closed, which I don't think we ever saw on screen, but he just sort of went there as an artist and said, well, I feel like the ship needs to have this.
I'm showing some of his art on the screen right now, but yeah, Dauntless class. Man, this guy is good. So DeviantArt, we'll be sure to put a link in his a link in the description below. And Ryan, if I haven't done that by the time you see this, kick me in the pants over an email. The possibilities here are really pretty extraordinary for this. I do feel for the Vancouver folks who were really heart set on having this thing produced there. I get it. And this has, I don't know if you thought about this yet, quickly outdated a huge portion of our December photography.
I was going to say, we just hung out with a bunch of them.
A lot of them, and they were really, looking forward to the possibility of that. So, but again, like you said, it's not impossible that they could shoot some of the show there. And I think that it would make sense for a host of reasons to do that. Part of one of the things that I am really looking forward to is the possibility of bringing one or two familiar faces back as new cast, as aliens, or to have them altered in some way. It's also been 20 years, so people don't look the same, I think we're long overdue to have Garwin Sanford come back as a third character.
As a third character?
Yeah, as a third character.
He's
or
still
David
pretty
McNally.
recognizable.
We need to bring him back, yeah, for a third character. So there are a few of them in there who played humans more than once. And there's a huge palette of folks who were previously involved in the show, whose characters are presumably still alive in this universe. So it makes a lot of sense to invite a few of them back. And I think if they don't bring back 1 or 2 people before the end of this 8, 9, 10, 11 episode run, I think everyone will be disappointed. So I don't see that happening. They've got to bring back someone.
Part of the texture, I think, of continuing the universe that we know and love, continuing the canon, is, the Free Jafar out there and the Toker are out there. They have a big shiny new city now. That's it makes sense to see some characters. Like you say, there's not necessarily a whole lot of bandwidth if it's a 10 episode season. If it's not a lot of it is set. I mean, I don't know that it's set in the Milky Way galaxy, frankly. I'm still thinking we might go somewhere else in the course of this show. So as the story permits, I'd love to see some of those faces. You and I have spent so much time in Vancouver and hanging out with cast and crew, and they've been so generous in giving us their time and their thoughts and their memories of working on the shows, that, boy, I mean, we're cheerleaders for the Vancouver film and television industry as a whole, as well as these folks in particular, and their desire to work, their desire to return to the characters that they helped to give life to.
Eating is so much better than not eating.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I think fans would love to see faces back.
I'm with you. I don't see this thing being set in any environment that we've seen before. Every new show has introduced a new network, at least, of Stargates. And maybe it's set in a pocket of our galaxy that we haven't accessed. Stargate Oblivion, what I pitched to Fandemonium, was set, along with Diana Botsford, was set in a dwarf galaxy called Segway 1, which actually exists. Yeah. And is, at the time, possessed the highest concentration of dark matter that we could detect in at least the local group of galaxies. And the pitch was that wormholes don't travel through dark matter. And they tug on dark matter. So your route through space is not consistent. And your path could be blocked if you pull on too much of it, if you have a Stargate open for too long. So you would have to jump around the galaxy in order to get where you wanted to go or to get home. They could do something like that here, where they're in a part of space where the Stargates have to be really used strategically. And so anyone who has the ability to move them with a spacecraft, if someone got their hands on a seed ship, whatever happened to the Milky Way seed ships? They didn't plant this thing. They would have had to have conveyed, or the Pegasus seed ships, they would have had to have conveyed the Stargates somehow. It only made
interesting.
Yeah.
An interesting point of speculation that I don't think I've ever had this conversation with anybody, let alone you. Destiny and the seed ships introduced that question that you're addressing directly, which is, well, okay, so how did the Milky Way gate network come about? How did the Pegasus gate network come about? Were those Stargates placed by some automated means, like seed ships?
Like seed ships.
Or were there ancients whose job it was to fly around in hyperspace as fast as they could and drop Stargates? And it just took them thousands of years to put thousands of Stargates in our galaxy. I'm also thinking about the fact that I think the Milky Way is underexplored, frankly.
Well, from our perspective, yes, it is. There's potentially millions of Stargates out there, or is it billions? I forgot the math when you carry the 4.
Yeah, the math on the number of addresses that you could potentially dial certainly gives you permission to make the network bigger, to do a pocket over here, or to just have a region of the Milky Way that has no gates. The ancients never went there. In millions of years living in our galaxy, they never went there.
or there was a threat that they refused. Yeah, can you imagine the strategic advantage if you discovered a seed ship in an asteroid field, dug it out? I mean, you could start your own little Stargate fiefdom in a corner of the galaxy, and you could reign supreme with that darn thing.
Which is kind of what Baal wanted to do, right?
It's what he wanted to do.
Scooping up Stargates in order to make his own little network.
That's it.
I think there's a lot of story potential there, even just in our galaxy.
Did he get that idea from Jay Felger? Was that a result of the Avenger 2.0 incident? Reprogramming the
not that I recall
DHDs?
Specifically. Okay. I'd have to rewatch that or read the transcript.
Exactly.
Because he got that idea in his head that he could somehow isolate his own little fiefdom using the Stargates. But the galaxy is so big. I mean,
it's pretty big.
Star Trek over the decades has done a great job illustrating the fact that, just our galaxy alone has, these in Star Trek 4 quadrants: Alpha Quadrant, Beta Quadrant, Delta, Gamma, and you can't fly across it really fast.
They've done a fair job recently unillustrating that fact as well with the spore drive. But I mean, for a Voyager, it's
for a Voyager, it's going to take you decades.
To borrow O'Neill, it's big. So
it's honking big.
Big and honking.
So I imagine the Milky Way. If we had a map of the Milky Way in the Stargate universe, and then you took all the Stargates that the ancients ever plotted down, all the Stargates that the Gould ever moved around, I imagine that would take up a relatively small portion of the Milky Way galaxy.
For sure. It's 110,000 light years across. That's a heck of a lot of real estate. And the number of alien races out there that the ancients never even touched is probably extreme.
Or the Furlings. Hey, somebody's going to bring up the Furlings before the stream is over. And I'm currently, the video that I was editing before I was so rudely interrupted by breaking news is about the 4 races and their alliance. And so I've had Furlings on my mind for a while, working on this video. And I think it's entirely plausible if the explanation turns out to be the Furlings are still alive and well. They're still out there. They live in our galaxy. They're just really far away, and they don't care about us.
Or they're really tired.
They don't have any Stargates.
Leave us alone. Stop calling us giant koalas.
Yeah, there are no Stargates near them. We've never found them. Our ships have never gone there. The Tok'ra have never come within, 10 years at hyperspace of even reaching their territory.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Nox gave up gate travel, for crying out loud. I wouldn't. Be surprised if they had abandoned it. So, absolutely. Anything else on your end? Anyone?
Let's see what's going on here. Guys, tag me in the GateWorld chat at gateworld.net if you want me to see your comment or question.
Put a question mark in the Dial the Gate chat as your first entry in a chat if you want to submit one to me.
Teleediting says, we could also have a new long-range transportation device. We know information can travel across galaxies through subspace. In theory, you could have a long-range Asgard beam device. That's interesting.
I've seen replace Stargate, though, the Stargate travel, wouldn't it?
Or maybe piggyback on Stargate travel. I've seen questions again on Reddit and social media like, what would happen if you sent an Asgard transporter beam through an open wormhole? Could you rematerialize it on the other side? If we could rig a Stargate to send and receive that kind of,
it's an awfully complicated piece of information. Radio
transport.
Waves. Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Yeah,
bypass
because you'd need something on the receiving gate that was smart enough to rematerialize the energy pattern.
Mm-hmm. There's something similar that was used in Stargate SG-1, the Alliance, that was in development by Perception in Australia, where Anubis had sent something through to SGC, and when he dialed in again, the iris could not be shut. So it interfered with the signal of the base computer communicating the information to the iris and actually interfered with the mechanism that was next to the iris inside of the embarkation room into locking it. And it was a great idea. But yeah, it's I wouldn't be surprised if that's something like that is the case. The possibilities are limitless.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. If we just had our own TV show, we could do all sorts of things. And Martin is way smarter than we are.
He is indeed.
Ales224, we're talking about the Furlings here, I think. He says, or they might think the Tauri killed the Asgard and are back to avenge their late friends. Or they might think the Tauri killed the Asgard or the Furlings and are back to avenge their late friends.
I suspect the Furlings are thinking that the
maybe the Furlings come to kill us because they think we're responsible for the death of the Asgard. I think that's the point.
Suspiria coming to take vengeance for the caretaker. I will never call us the Tauri. I'm not going to do it. Why that is a designation given to our planet by one of our greatest enemies.
Well, the Toker used it too.
They did?
Yeah, on occasion.
Okay, I rescind that remark.
Ales224, do you think they might do slices of life in the back times to set events on the long stretch of nothing, or rather jump straight in and fill in on the need to know basis? So correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the question? Is the show just going to start in the present day and blast forward with its story, or are they going to take time to fill in some of the missing years, some of the lost years by telling stories through flashbacks or other means?
I really don't think they're going to play it like, here's what you missed, flashback. This is going to cater it must cater at least 51% to a new audience. We're going to have dialogue, filling in any necessary pieces that we've missed, because obviously the Stargate program would have continued in some form unless they killed it, unless some version of Robert Kenzie managed to step in and say, look, we've got the ships now. This is not a good idea. Let's get this thing off planet, or just put it under a couple of rocks and shut the thing off. It could entirely be possible that there hasn't been an ongoing program that way. Who knows how our modern Earth may have impacted the events in that series. There may be an inextricable link between modern Earth and the story that they want to tell. We haven't really explored that very much.
Yeah. I kind of haven't been thinking much about the events of modern Earth since
Space Force,
since the election of President, what's his name, on the show.
Oh, Hayes.
President Hayes. Mm-hmm. Since we had a presidential election around about 2003, and the swearing in of a new president.
Yeah.
That, for me, that kind of solidly put us in an alternate universe.
Yeah, that was one of my issues with that when that happened. It's like, okay, this, if you really want to get down into the dirt about it, and not that far down even, it does obviously, that's not the guy. But I still think that you could we're still asked to join them on a journey, and whether it's us or not, ours is not only the reality of consequence, O'Neill. So there's a lot of ways that this could play out. LGR FBS, Easter eggs from other sci-fi series in Stargate. I mean, look no further than 200. I would suspect that there will be some nods to some other shows. There would have to be. I would want there to be some reference. One of my favorite references is indirectly to Signs in, was it Orpheus, the Erebus episode?
Yeah. When they're in the weight room.
Yeah. Do you know how we defeated them? Water. Who invades a planet that's 80% water?
I love Sam just being exasperated.
Exactly right. Yeah,
Daniel,
that's right.
Meanwhile, Daniel can barely remember his own name.
That's it. Thanks, Jim. I still like your theory though that was that they named the George Dzunza character specifically that. Yeah. That I don't think Robert, you could get him to say either way. I don't think he remembered.
I don't think he remembered.
Yeah.
Seems like an easy yes.
So I asked Robert this, and I want this to get on the record here in Dial
Executive producer Robert C. Cooper.
Robert C. Cooper. I sent him an email, and I was like, "How would I convey this to get Robert to say that, so that it's a part of the fabric of our channels?" But you know what? I can just say it. Let me see here. I asked about the etymology of Naquadah.
Oh, right.
Talk about getting
the name Naquadah.
I can't believe I've never asked this question, Rob. Did you come up with the term Naquadah? Its first appearance is in singularity. I'm also wondering if you could consider this as its proper spelling, Naquadah. In the feature film, the city was referred to in documentation as Nagada or Nagada. So I'm curious about the etymology. In Stargate Origins, they refer to Naquadah as Nagada as well, while speaking to young Kasuf in his own language. That was a very absolutely. And he says, to be honest,
that's from the film script, right? The name Nagada for the Aberdonian city. That's right. In the script for the movie. It's not something that Origins made up.
Correct. That's it. That's a carryover. He says, or Coop says, honestly, I don't really remember. I don't think it was related to Nagada. I do remember a lot of debating as to the pronunciation. Was it Naquadah? Naquadah? So that was one of the things that was bantered back and forth. But I still like to think that it was extracted from the film. So unfortunately, we don't really know for sure. But singularity was the first use of that because obviously it was an important plot detail being a part of Cassandra's body at that point. So that's a good little nugget for everybody. What else we got here? Matthew Hammond, 9575. Will the bad guys have English accents? So Star Wars was shot at Leavesden? No. Where was it shot in the UK? Whatever film studio it was. So it just became part of that trope, Pinewood, that the villains are all played by British folk. So if they do speak English and there are bad guys, there better be at least one of them in there that has an English accent. Yeah.
Need some good British gold. Let's see. We had Osiris. Who else? Did we have anybody else with a British accent?
Sarah, what's her face? In the glass in Superman.
Sarah Douglas.
That's it. Yeah. So she had.
Oh, she played Gershaw.
Gold. Yeah.
Head of the Tok'ra in season 2. Yeah. Cliff was South African.
Others. He was indeed South Africa. Yeah,
Sue-Ann,
so was Sue-Ann,
African.
but she has more of a British accent. But she can really bring out the South African accent if she wants to. Sue-Ann is in the UK. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
So
now it's easier for local casting, obviously.
For sure.
But let's also bear in mind that these guys are going to have money, so they can cast from anywhere in the world. And if your part requires you to go to Tunisia for 3 weeks, Amazon's going to pay to fly you to Tunisia. If they want you in London, they're going to pay to fly you to London. So there's more. I get the sense from the shows that I watch, the streaming shows that have lots of money, that they bring people in from all over the world. They're not just using local casting, but they will use local casting for sure. This will be a boon to the UK film and television industry.
100%. I'm wondering if at least 50% of the cast will need to be of not necessarily from a British territory, you know. At least what was the requirement in Stargate for Canada? I think it was at least 50% of the cast had to be from either Canada or from the UK or from a British.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the cast, but it was definitely crew. It was definitely crew. The jobs that the show created. There was a minimum set for Canadian citizens.
That's it. Tele-editing, the ancients used Naquadah for the Milky Way stargates. What did they call it, and did they use it? We don't know what the ancients called Naquadah. Did they use it for Pegasus or Destiny? Definitely not the SGU stargates, considering you could shoot at it with weaponry, and the side of it would just blow a chunk out of itself, like the drones did in, what was it, Common Descent?
In Common Descent.
Yeah.
Which is something that I find really fascinating about the SGU lore and the seed chips is...
They're fragile.
The seed chips had to use whatever materials they could scoop up along the way. So that's fascinating that it's even possible to make a Stargate that can connect a wormhole using everyday household items that you find under your sink. whatever minerals happen to be scooped up in that star system or the one before.
Stargates, just add water.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing.
The implication was, I don't necessarily think that Naquadah was abundant in the galaxy, just that it wasn't native to our system, which is why they came to us when they wanted to harvest hosts. And then when they had their fill of us, they stopped. It's also lended a good reason as to why Ra no longer required, Earth as a base after a while, when he decided, enough with them.
They had so many humans already scattered across the galaxy.
That's it. Why didn't he wipe out the Egyptian population from orbit? That's an awfully un-Gouldy thing to do.
That's an open question.
Yeah.
I imagine it just wasn't worth his time to fly there in hyperspace.
Those may have, been controlled by people who rebelled against him. He may have been the only one able to pilot the ship and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, and think about this. Think about Teal'c's estimation at the end of season 1. Where
it'll take a while.
The ships are on their way to Earth, and Teal'c gives an estimate for how long it will take based on the ship's speed. Sam estimates it'll take at least a month to get to Earth.
I thought a year.
Was it a year? I thought it was a year. Month. Whatever it is.
It was going to be a while. They had time.
The point stands that it ends up being very wrong, right? Because they arrive in a matter of hours, presumably.
Yes. So their hyperdrive is really accelerated.
Either... What's your headcanon for this? Either Teal'c is super wrong and doesn't know how fast Hatak can fly, or the Goa'uld have recently improved their engines and they can go a lot faster than they used to. So maybe Ra's ships, Ra's flying around in a pyramid ship, an older model, maybe it's just slower and it would take him months to reach Earth.
Well, he talks about the Hatak vessels, and that's definitely what those are. It's one of those things. It's just a non sequitur. It doesn't follow the convenience of the hyperspace velocity. I mean, was up there with the convenience of dragon speed in flight in Game of Thrones. From one place to the other. All of a sudden, by the end of that show, they they got anywhere very fast. It's just one of those things, as my dad would say, you got to buy it.
They fly at the speed of plot.
They fly at the speed of plot. That's it. That's right. So, I think
Ailes reminds us, to be fair, they didn't even have a name for ZPMs. Janice admits that they don't have a name for ZPMs.
When is that the case?
Do you remember that? I don't remember that line in Before I Sleep.
Of course they would have a name for ZPMs, even if it was a power cell.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm trying to remember the dialogue.
I think he asked Elizabeth what you call them.
Yeah.
Have a look
so she called them ZPMs, and I don't know that they didn't have a name for it, but he didn't tell her what it was.
That's okay. Grinding halt. GateWorld.net, Before I Sleep transcript. Let's see here. You said the shield collapsed shortly after your arrival. I have to find a way to extend the supply of power. What is it you called them? 0-point module. Yes, they're designed to operate in parallel, with all three providing power to the city simultaneously. I didn't mean to burst your bubble, buddy. But yeah, they would have a term for their most valuable asset. So what did you think of the idea that Joseph Melancey posited for the season 6 Atlantis finale, where they found access to the location where all the ZPMs were built, their manufacturing site. I think it was somewhere on Atlantis.
Yeah, I think
in a pocket of something.
Joe was working on this idea of the ZPM factory being in like a pocket dimension.
Yeah.
So
it was something that he and I had talked
Atlantis.
about. I was really proud of that. It would have to be accessed from Atlantis because, I mean, if this is the crown jewel of the ancient domain, you would have access relatively straightforward.
Yeah, you'd need batteries.
And you wouldn't want them to hurt your base.
If the writers told us that manufacturing ZPMs, which is right, it's a universe in a bottle. It's a little pocket of subspace. If the writers were to tell us that manufacturing ZPMs is extraordinarily dangerous and touchy, I would totally buy that. It happens on another planet or in a pocket dimension or somewhere where the ancients could access it. You know, when you got to change the batteries in your smoke detector, but it's not in the city proper.
That's it. Yeah. I'm thrilled that we know where this thing's going to be now. Where was this initially reported? Where did you find out about this?
GateWorld.
Really? So you got a tip?
Well, it was
GateWorld
initially
has learned.
It was originally shared with me. There's production assets that are out there for the production industry, including Production Weekly, which lists kind of a little snapshot of here are the production companies that are involved in this project. Here's their address. Here's who you would contact if you wanted to get work on this show or. So it's just kind of bare bones details of this project is filming here, and these are the executives who are doing it. So and that they publish weekly, and Stargate showed up on it this week. So from there, I went to GateWorld sources and got some confirmation and a little bit of extra detail that's not in the Production Weekly report.
This is so sweet. Man, oh man. Well, this is going to be great to chew on. We've got several friends in the UK. Jacob Eliash, my lead archivist. Sorry, Jacob, you got another transcript to deal with, buddy. He actually does take part in filming around there, so he will have a lot to say about this. So yeah,
it's fun to see Tommy and other UK fans so excited about this.
Yeah, Matthew Hammond 9575. Will Rodney McKay and John Sheppard make an appearance in the new show? Of course they will. I would hope so. So we will see. I'm really looking forward to just tearing apart morsel by morsel every cast announcement as they come through, and it's going to be really exciting to, I hope, get a chance to get to know some of these people before they get to know their characters. One of my proudest interviews is sitting down with Brian Smith before he got to know Matt Scott, and just picking it. A lot of it was like what wasn't said during the live conversation, what was said off the record. Because he had wanted a dog, and I'm like, dude, that production is very dog friendly. And then he went and got his King Charles Spaniel, Cassie. Yeah. So there's these people are walking into something very special. If I were them, I wouldn't want to know too much about us, not because us are so threatening, but there is an intimidation factor there. A number of the Star Trek cast over the years, including Elizabeth Dennehy, was like, had I known that it was as big as it was, I wouldn't have been able to do my job. I couldn't get it done.
Oh, okay, that's a good point.
It's that factors in. You have to keep your head down and go to work.
Don't want it to get in their head.
That's it. That's right.
But hopefully, you and I will have the opportunity to visit the production while they are shooting.
Sure hope so.
That's my dream. We got to do it in Vancouver for several years running.
Yeah, I think 5 years in my case in a row, 4 or 5. So
yeah, that's my dream. So I'm going to get my passport together. Hopefully we get to go to London.
You haven't gotten your passport together you should have your passport.
No, I told you at the start of the stream. It's been expired for over 10 years.
We knew it was going to be filming worldwide. You know, as soon as you got that, the next business day, you should be like, okay.
I got time.
Well, yes, you do. That's true. But don't wait. So, all right.
It's because it's so easy to get to Vancouver from here.
I know. Have we talked about what we shot in Vancouver? I don't think so. I think
no, certainly not on my channel.
Had already wrapped as I continue a season 5 episode right now.
Yeah. Before we talk about all that content, let me get one more comment in here on our previous conversation. Because this is funny. This is worth talking about. Phobic Dragon 8263. We're talking about the idea of Baal creating his own little fiefdom by stealing stargates and kind of hacking his own little gate network. Phobic Dragon says Baal got the reseeding idea from Anubis and the Alteran device. Not sure what that one is. And helped getting it going using the god of gluten, gold scientist. He's talking about Nerus.
What Nerus, I thought... he figured out how to dial all of the Stargates simultaneously. Alteran device. Does it mean a tarot device? Alterans are the species that the ancients came from when they were still joined with the Ori. But yeah, it's
maybe the Dakara device.
That could be as well.
So Baal got the reseeding idea from Anubis and the Alteran device. Maybe just the idea of
So using the Dakara device
for terraforming.
Yeah. That's probably a good idea of what that was.
But yeah, Nerus is a good callback. Baal was not singularly smart. Baal hired smart people.
There we go. Anthony Rowling, one of our mods, Amazon has a long-term lease with Pinewoods Shepperton Studios. So yeah, there's a lot that's going to be coming that way for sure.
Yeah.
Which project that we filmed in December are you most excited about fellow fans getting to watch?
We spent 3 days in Vancouver in December, and we shot some fun stuff. We revisited some old friends. I'm excited about a lot of it. I had a lot of fun with Rob Fournier's P90 demonstration.
Yeah. Oh, so did I.
Although, yeah, I know you did. I imagine that's a particular subset of fans that are going to geek out over the P90 and the various sci-fi weaponry that he had on display for us. I am excited to see how fans react to the Seaside Walk and Talk.
Yes.
Which I have not seen because I was shooting the wide shots from a distance. So I have no idea what anybody said in that. I'm looking forward to watching it.
It was definitely a good conversation. I'm sharing some of the footage right now that Rob had with us for the P90 demo. Myself and Remington Phillips were fortunate enough to get to fire these. Each of us got a chance to shoot one of the 10 weapons that they had gotten for production, and it was just a great opportunity to just a great opportunity to that he gave us. So I'm just thrilled that yep.
Yeah, so it was a very memorable experience.
Yep.
Including the stuff that we didn't get to film. It was very memorable seeing what they have. Do we get to talk about who was in the Seaside Walk and Talk?
So that was Ellie Harvey, and that was Gary Jones, and that was Paul McGillian. So we were very privileged to be able to have a conversation with the three of them. They did this down in where was this? Was this what bay is that called? I'm trying to remember its name. I'm trying to remember exactly where we were. But
I knew it for about a week while we were there, and then
yeah, exactly.
Left my Fron.
Left your Fron. Let me pull this up here and share this real quick.
It was a beautiful day. This was the tiny, skinny, beautiful window in the middle of a very rainy week.
It was. So we had this huge fear that the weather there was going to completely do us in. And Gary Jones kept on telling us, it's going to work. It's going to be fantastic. We're looking at the weather and it's raining cats and dogs the entire time. Boy, he was absolutely right. And
yeah, he had his own touchstone back at his flat.
He sure was.
He made it happen.
The touchstone. Yeah, no, it's absolutely the case. But yeah, it was a good time. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we had with Richard Hugh Dolan, you and I one-on-one. That was a treat. That was really special.
Richard Hugh Dolan was the production designer on Stargate SG-1 for the first 8 seasons?
First 5 seasons of SG-1.
Okay.
So when they went to season 6, Bridget McGuire took over for him, and then she did 6 through 10. And was that correct? I think she did 6. Yeah, she did 6 through 10. And James C.D. Robbins.
So Richard and his team are responsible for so much of the look of the show, translating things over from the movie, Stargate Command. What does the Stargate look like? How is it different? And then episode by episode, we talked or listened to Richard, and then later with a roundtable with some of his production teammates. Long stories about the tomb in season 5 and how they got that looking just right. Really wonderful stuff that I'd never heard before. 30 years as a Stargate fan.
There are stories that go on in production where it's like a family, yes, and families squabble, and you have creative people who are wanting to make something beautiful, and they don't always go at it at a straight line. They have to figure their way out, and some people go one direction, some people go another direction, and so we get into the detail of that more than one conversation with these folks, and it was frankly refreshing to hear that. Oh yeah, these folks, they put their pants on just the same as everyone else does. So
but there's so much history about the show that live in their minds. It was really wonderful to sit down with them and hear those stories and be able to ask them questions.
Especially since a lot of them are getting up there now. So it's important that we sit down and we talk with them while we can.
Yeah, you are in between seasons right now with Dial the Gate.
Technically.
You want to, okay, first of all, do you want to talk about your premiere, when you're coming back, and when we're going to start to see all this awesome content from Vancouver? But then second, why did I just see a Robert Picardo interview come up if you're supposed to be off?
Because when the doctor asks, can you do Wednesday? You say, absolutely, yes, I can. So I tagged him on the end of season 5, and so is this, by the way. So technically, Joe will be our first. I'm talking with a very special doctor right now about joining us for early season 6, if we can get an apple box for her to stand on. There's a number of great folks who are going to be joining. Paul Weber.
Oh, wow.
Casting director.
Did you get him finally?
We got him. He's going to be, he is the
casting director. How many stories do you guys think the casting director has to tell?
God, I hope he has a couple at least, please. So Paul is casting director. He is on March the 13th. James C.D. Robbins is actually back to join us as well. I haven't updated that, but let me have a look here as to when that is real quick. I think he's in our opening weekend, if I'm not mistaken. The 8th of February, James C.D. Robbins is joining us at 10 a.m. And Paul Weber is joining us at 2 p.m. on the 13th of March. Yeah, I'm really interested in what Paul has to say. It all comes down to his memory, just how much ginkgo has he been drinking. So we can really like sum up all of these. He's got to be able to tell us some of these stories about what was it like casting Joe Flanagan? What was it like casting Amanda Tapping, Michael Shanks, whom I was convinced for about 5-10 minutes was James Spader when I watched Children of the Gods for the first time.
You're not the only one.
I hadn't seen the feature film. I saw it the next night by coincidence. And it was just, it's not just the look, it's the mannerisms. How do you cast as well as you do? And he has cast tremendously. The music of Joel Goldsmith is something that I am really particularly fond of. I am a huge fan of Joel's music, and so what we have done is create a if I can find it here, and of course I can't find my opening file. It's called Destiny is Calling, and it's the opening scene. Give me just a moment here. I have been blessed to have a relationship with Joel while he was alive, and the fact of the matter is that we're still hoping that his music is going to be more of his music will be released at some point here in the future, because there's so much wonderful content that he created over the years. I mean, I was just with some of my peers listening to the music for The Fifth Race, and that should have given him an award. That piece of music was just so insanely perfect. But we've got so much that's coming that is going to be an honor to him. We've created this opening sequence that I'm showing right now for the documentary that we're doing that is going to explore his musical journey, that actually is based on an image out in my hall that a fan created by the name of Chris Diston of Destiny launching from Earth whenever it did. And we've brought that to life. And Rachel Luttrell, she has gone and created a whole series of clips. She's hosting the thing for us. Mm-hmm. We have contributions from Brad Wright and Robert Cooper, and it's basically, everything that I could have wanted to express my love for such a brilliant artist. So we're thrilled. I have a whole team of editors that are working right now to create this thing, and we were supposed to come out on Thanksgiving, but we're doing it now. So, and this will be simulcast with GateWorld.
I'm really looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else before we wrap it up?
So your official season premiere for Dial the Gate Season 6 is February the 7th. The 7th with the great Joe Flanagan.
Yep.
I want to say, have you not talked to Joe Flanagan since season 1?
Episode 4.
Episode 4.
4. Yeah.
So
we talked for like 2.5 hours. So I have a lot to discuss with him. I would like him to go in depth, if he's willing, into the story behind it, because he attempted to acquire the Stargate brand from MGM, did he not?
Yeah, he attempted to lease the license for Stargate.
Lease it. Interesting.
Yeah, the story that he's told at conventions is that he went and got a bunch of international investment partners and took a plan to MGM and said, give us the license for 10 years and let us make a show. And they turned him down flat.
Wow. Okay. Vegan Peace Rider 2500. Since Starfury Ascension is August 28th through the 30th in England, our David and Darren may be going. I wouldn't be surprised if they reach out to Martin and company and invite them. August, they'll certainly be able to communicate something. They may be able to coordinate some kind of a, I don't know, a teaser of from some of the elements that they're going to be working on. He could show off some of his concept art there. That'd be really cool.
Oh yeah, he told us he had a stack of concept art.
There's a whole stack.
Eventually we'll get to see. That might be a really cool place to do it, is at a fan convention.
Exactly right.
I was just going to say, because their production offices are apparently not going to be set up until September or later, that maybe next year I wonder they'll be fully in the swing of things if the same event happens again in 2027.
Could be. Yeah. I was predicting that production, would have wrapped by this time next year of principal photography. But if they're starting in the fall, it depends on when they're starting in the fall. It could be done. If it's 10 episodes, they could probably do it in what 4 or 5 months. So
I think that would be fast because they're doing international with multiple units.
Okay.
So every once in a while I'll see like Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I'll see its production dates for the season come up and kind of do the math. And I should go and look one up as an example. But I kind of feel like those 10 episode seasons take in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 months of principal photography.
Principal photography? Really?
It might not be quite that long. It might be 6 or 7, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're starting in the fall. It wouldn't surprise me if they're still shooting next spring.
Oh. Yeah, it certainly could be. I'm excited, man.
But hey, the more days fly off the calendar, I think the more information we're going to have, and we're going to be able to get Martin Gero himself back on and ask him some more questions that he will hopefully be able to answer.
Yeah, let's definitely. I want to ask him back, at least once before they start filming. I don't think it's fair to ask him back more than that. But
I think by that point, we're going to know more about what the show is,
right?
Where it's set, maybe who the main characters are. We're going to start to get casting news come out as they cast the main parts, and he's going to be more free, not completely free. Obviously, we don't want to spoil everything, but more free to talk about some of the substance of the show that before the cameras start rolling.
The idea of it. How long? I'm trying to remember because I don't know if you exclusively released the Stargate Atlantis plot. I don't know if you got that or not about the Wraith. Did GateWorld get that exclusively? About the Wraith calling the Pegasus Galaxy for food? Because I remember sitting there with just
don't recall.
my eyes watering, my mouth watering, not my eyes watering. Reading.
That's called crying.
Yes. It's also called I'm Cutting Onions. Breaking down the initial Atlantis idea. So it was months. I think it was it months before? I think they'd already started shooting by the time that had come out, though. So there's a lot of time to kill.
Yeah, I don't remember the when we learned everything about Atlantis, about where it was set, being in the Pegasus Galaxy. I think that by the time they announced SG-1 was being renewed alongside this new show, at that point they told us that it was going to be in another galaxy, so that they didn't step on each other's toes every week, so that Atlantis doesn't get into a problem and just run to SG-1 for help. So I think we knew that much at least. But yeah, the details about the characters and the Wraith, I don't remember when we found that out. But I visited in April of 2004 when they were shooting the second episode.
Hide and Seek. They were shooting that in April. Well, I guess don't they usually start principal photography, I guess, in March. So yeah.
Yeah, SG-1 was typically February.
Okay.
Mid to late February. But yeah, I think it was the first part of April that I was out there. And they were pretty early on. They had spent several weeks on the pilot at that point. So by the time I went there and was on set, I think we knew what the show was. Mm-hmm. That was not new to me, and that was not a secret I had to keep.
For sure. What was a secret you had to keep?
I don't
remember you getting back and telling me, I can't talk about this. You probably
remember
did.
how Stargate Universe rolled out.
Well, they shut down the press except for us and maybe.
Well, yeah, but before that, before the show entered production, when Brad and Rob were working on the idea and kind of hammering out what it would be, you and I were privy to some information
the name
about things like the name, that it was going to be, they wanted it to be called Stargate Universe,
which we premiered exclusively, and they hadn't nailed it down for sure yet.
And also, they were toying with the idea of it not having a traditional antagonist like the Gold or the Wraith, which it didn't. I don't know. I don't even know to this day if the blue aliens, the Naquadah, are an antagonist or not. But
they're an antagonist, but I don't know if they would have been
they're
a
antagonistic
antagonist
in the story sense.
Exactly.
But so we had some of those pieces early while they were still. I don't think they had even written the pilot yet.
I don't think so. It was still very broad strokes at the time.
GateWorld broke some of that news. GateWorld broke the news of the title of the series.
Yeah, I remember the logo having a purple.
Yeah, it had that
outline.
Little purple swoosh.
And I don't know. Did I go to Gero? Was it Martin Gero? I asked, are the chevrons going to be purple? And I don't know. One of them said something, and I was surprised when they were white. So that's a great question. We need to start a pool. What color are the chevrons going to be this time around? Your favorite color is green.
Well, I'm an
Stargate was green.
So if it's in the Milky Way galaxy, I want everything to be as it was.
As it was. Yeah. Speaking of, I've been doing some spring cleaning in the winter.
Oh, yeah? What did you find me? A big piece of paper. Ooh. Yeah. It's upside down.
Is it? Oh, frack.
But it's still pretty.
It's round.
Holger Gross. So this is the feature film Stargate.
Feature film.
Sketch.
Yeah. So you can see these in a little bit better detail in. You can go and search the Dial the Gate archive for David's Stargate collection.
Yes, yes.
We go
very
through
nice
these here, but yeah, no, it's there is a lot of cool stuff that that they can mine from the legacy content. So who knows if we'll get to see anything that's familiar. I'm honestly looking forward to the new stuff.
Yeah.
As much, if not more, than the old stuff.
Yeah.
So, because it means that
I want to meet a new team.
Things. New team, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that at least one known actor will be a fixture in this. That will be some draw. I hope that they have a Richard Dean Anderson or a Bobby Carlyle to bring in a little bit more legitimacy is not the right word.
Yeah, gravitas.
Yeah, so a little bit more. I mean, imagine Next Generation without Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah,
it would have been a completely different show, tonally. You
don't mean necessarily somebody from the previous shows as an anchor point. You mean an actor with some real gravity,
who has a familiar face, who has some gravity. Yeah, I wouldn't,
a Holly Hunter. Yeah,
a Holly Hunter.
Paul Giamatti.
What do you think of her as Aki? We're talking about Starfleet Academy, folks.
We're talking Starfleet Academy now for just a hot second. I appreciate that her character is different. And the way that she plays her character is different than any other captain or leader that we've seen on the show so far. I appreciate her performance.
Okay.
I think she's making some interesting choices.
Oh yeah, curling up in the captain's chair like a cat.
Yeah, she's like a school teacher. She's like, they put the school teacher in charge of.
I was really hoping for an Admiral Brand type. I loved Admiral Brand in the First Duty, and it's one of those things at this point. I didn't tell this to Bob Picardo, but I love Holly Hunter, but like how I felt with what's her face who played Dr. Smith in the new Lost in Space, I'm not crazy about the casting choice for the role. I think she may be miscast. But I love the actor, so it's like I'm like stuck on this. So there's. But
I also kind of she kind of sold me. What's her name?
Aki, Captain Aki, Holly Hunter.
No, Lost in Space.
Oh, it's hell. Gosh, Parker Posey. That's it. I was not crazy about her as Smith in the entire first season.
I was skeptical about the casting, and that's one where she won me over the course of 3 seasons or whatever it was.
Oh, so you finished it. I haven't gotten past season 1. Is that worth finishing?
Yeah, I enjoyed Lost in Space. It's a good kind of traditional by the numbers family science fiction.
Does it have an ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I remember, it's been a few years.
Have you seen Paradise?
Everybody, by the way, this is what David and I do every time we get on Zoom. It inevitably goes to, so what are you watching right now? Oh, have you seen?
Exactly.
Yeah. Have you made it through?
Have you seen Paradise?
No, I have not.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think about Paradise.
I don't know what it is. I've heard it. I've heard of it a couple times.
10 episodes long. And it is one of those sleeper sci-fis on NBC. I watched it with my folks, and we got to the end of it, and NBC, on Peacock, I think. And it was one of those where my dad got to the end of it, and he was like, I can't wait to watch this again. My dad doesn't watch anything twice.
Okay.
Everything that happened in it, like he was like saying, if this was real, this will happen next. And it does.
And it does.
Oh,
so you think it's sci-fi enough that it's going to hold my attention?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I am currently watching Silo, which I love.
It's interesting that you say Silo, because there's something very Silo-esque about this.
Okay. I just finished rewatching the first season, which I watched a couple years ago. And then I was going to watch season 2 with my brother when we got together, and we were too busy during our vacation and didn't get to watch it. So now I'm finally watching season 2 after waiting way too long. But I love Silo.
Fulfilling your expectations?
So far, yeah. I mean, I want to binge it instead of working and sleeping.
That's it. Yeah.
So it's having that effect on me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing Rogue One, not Rogue One, Andor. I haven't seen the second season. I'm looking forward to that. Most of the Star Wars I have not watched at all. More of the animated stuff I have than anything else. There's some good animated Star Wars out there, but there's so much I just like sat back. I need to see the new season of Strange New Worlds and not watch that. But there's a lot to catch up on. There's some decent stuff, and there's some really great stuff. Where are you with Severance? Have you started Severance at all?
Yeah, I'm all caught up on Severance.
You are? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think it's just rocking.
I'm digging that show.
Oh man.
It's no Silo, but yeah, I'm digging it.
Did you see Pluribus?
Not yet.
You and I will have a lot to talk about with Pluribus, and
it's on the list.
The shape of our society and what its implications for us as we become more of a hive mind with our technology.
Okay.
And the fragility of our nature. I mean, you yell at someone and they can't handle it. There's a lot of modern
kind of Black Mirror
modern parallels. It could be definitely could be cut from Black Mirror, except that it's not, the activation is not a technological one, but there is a technological component to it for sure. So, but yeah, looking forward to talking about that with you.
And the family right now is watching Farscape.
At this moment?
At this moment, on a nightly basis.
Oh, on a nightly basis. Okay. Where are they in the show?
Continue to nag you and get on your case.
I know. A brand new car. That's all I remember about it.
You have to watch the show.
You
have no idea.
I watched Peacekeeper Wars.
You have no idea the acting chops of Ben Browder and Claudia Black until you've watched the show.
Okay. I have a hard time buying Rigel. Pilot is cool.
Yeah. It takes a while, right? It's episodic 90s TV, so it takes a while.
It's so hard.
Fall in love with characters, and they go from being at each other's throats to being a found family.
Yeah. And I really like the monochromatic character. She's kind of cool.
The monochromatic Gianna.
Is that Gianna? Okay. Yeah.
Gianna.
Yeah.
Gigi Edgley's character.
The plant character is cool. I had a bad encounter with her at a convention once. So, and then she was on my wallpaper, and I lost the subscription to it. And then she was stuck as my wallpaper on my desktop. I could not get her off of it. Oh man.
So what are you watching then?
Below Deck. That's my palate cleanser. What am I watching right now? I'm not
This is
watching
This is why you're
anything.
not watching any.
I have no time.
Sci-fi shows.
I went to
you're
school
busy,
last year.
and when you do watch TV, you watch Below Decks.
It's something that you can turn on and off. If I'm going to commit myself to something, I have to be ready in the mind and mentally in the mental space for it. That's why I've left The Expanse, untouched. It's like I look at it like a gift still wrapped behind the Christmas tree that that I've never put away. Once I go in, I am all in.
You're not getting any younger, though.
I'm not.
I tell you, when you're knocking on the door of 50, you start taking an index of 43. What you want to do.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. No, absolutely. Sit down and watch a lot of television is the answer, I suppose. So, okay, yeah, okay. The next show that I watch, what is it? The next one that I start, what is it going to be? That we'll report back and I'll have something to say about.
I mean, there are a lot of shows that I want you to watch, and they are different levels. You don't have to tell me
right now, but
there are varying levels of time commitment.
Well, that's the thing. Don't just text me. So, anything else before we wrap?
No, I just want to say,
have we watched Fallout? Have you watched Fallout?
I watched first season.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode. I do a lot of watching of first episodes.
First episodes just to get a taste of it.
Because I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan, so that was obviously a connection there with what's his face? Yeah, so it was great. Yeah.
I have 3 lists of shows running. One is what we watch together as a family, the shows that my wife and I watch together after the kids go to bed, and the stuff I watch by myself. So there are shows like Fallout that my spouse is also excited to watch with me, so I have to wait for her availability. And then we have to get through 3 other shows before Fallout comes around.
Okay. Yeah, there's any TV that I've been watching, or when my folks come to town, is the case. And generally speaking, if it's not completely interesting, my mother has a habit of falling asleep. But the last thing that I think we really watched together as a family was Pluribus, and we watched it in 3 days, and she was up through the entire thing. So it's Vince Gilligan. I don't know if you've seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul.
Just the pilot.
Of both of them?
Of Breaking Bad.
I see. Okay. I'll never forget Brad Wright's. He had a comment about Better Call Saul when I sat down to interview him once. He said it unpacks very slowly, and I love it. And that sums it up. So he is an excellent storyteller, and it's excellent sci-fi. Up there with Severance in terms of like Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller, yeah, he's a huge Trekkie. So, and Vince came from X-Files, so it makes total sense. Right. This is a great idea. Right. So, all right, you have certain people to pick up with your vehicle.
We will talk more about other sci-fi shows on another stream.
Yes, we really appreciate you tuning in, folks. This has been great. Yeah. So you have tomorrow night another episode.
This is a lot of fun. So over on GateWorld, we do usually Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific. 5 p.m. Eastern time, and that's the case tomorrow as well. We'll talk more about this news, about Stargate shooting in London, and also what it means for Vancouver with Andrew Reeve. Thanks to our mods who are here in both chats. I've got Hellcats has been helping mod tonight, and Jeff from Suns and Shadows. Hey, if you guys haven't checked out Suns and Shadows podcast yet, they are doing Thursday night chats about Stargate. So they do a rewatch with 2 episodes every week, and tonight at 8:15 on YouTube, 8:15 Pacific, they're going to talk about Summit and Last Stand. Nice chance to go check them out.
For a long time. That's great.
I was just on a couple of weeks ago, and
very good.
Those guys are fun to talk to. So
we'll give
the Sons and Shadows team a plug here. Go just look up Sons and Shadows on YouTube. You want to find their podcast tonight.
Absolutely. And you're going to catch me back with Joe Flanagan the 7th of February at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Joe's going to be a great draw.
Very good.
And we're going to have a lot to catch up on.
I'm excited that he's coming back.
Yep, indeed. So for sure, it's going to be great. And visit dialthegate.com for the complete list of upcoming episodes. There are nearly 20 shows that are planned. We're going to be throwing out a lot of content at you very quickly, and I'm going to do everything I can to absolutely break every single bone in my metaphorical staff's body, getting these ones out. That's just how much do you love Stargate?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the works. There's all this stuff that we shot in Vancouver, in addition to all the new Stargate stuff.
We're not going to sit on it for long.
News, breaking news at GateWorld.net, and then all the deep dive conversations that David's going to have on Dial the Gate. We got it. Raj Luthor is also here modding. Hey, Raj.
There we go. And he's in mine. Dude,
excellent.
You traitor.
Double teaming. Collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. And also had Anthony Rowling in there for a while. I appreciate my entire team. You guys really step it up just when, we could throw something like this together at just the last moment. And I'm so thrilled that we have the infrastructure now and the time to pull this off. So,
well, I imagine this will not be our last spontaneous live stream. When exciting things happen and we have the ability now to just go live together and talk about it in real time with you guys.
That's it.
Let's keep doing it.
Absolutely, guys. We appreciate y'all tuning in, folks. I'm David Reed for the Dial the Gate. He's Darren Sumner for GateWorld.net. We'll speak to you soon. See you on the other side. Bye. Guys.